I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Whirlwind swell, long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be along. Yeah, I hope and pray that I'll.
Good morning, Pioneer Valley. This is Bill Scher on the Liberal Oasis radio show. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Hope you have recovered from turkey coma. Hope you had a delightful Buy Nothing Day on Friday. Stuck it to the man. And I want to make one slight correction from last week's show. You may recall that I discussed the turmoil in Pakistan. I played some clips of how President Musharraf described his state of emergency as being a boon for democracy. And sometimes in the practice of humor, you say hyperbolic things that you don't necessarily mean literally. And I assume that you heard that and took it as intended. When I said that George Bush was praising Musharraf, and was jealous they didn't think of those sorts of anti-democratic tactics himself, I didn't necessarily think that Bush would really do that or think that. Yet this week on ABC's World News Tonight, Charlie Gibson interviewed George Bush, and this is what their exchange. This is how their exchange went.
The state of emergency, which he says he needs to do to fight terrorism, all he's done is arrest political opponents. He's arrested lawyers. He's arrested human rights people. It looks more about saving his own political skin.
As I say, he has done more for democracy in Pakistan than any modern leader.
So I'm sorry that I made light of something and gave the impression that George Bush wouldn't actually think something like that literally, when in fact he does. So my mistake, I retract. George Bush is insane. Onward and upward. I have noticed in recent weeks, well, let me say one thing first. There are interesting developments in the presidential primary race. You have Obama in Iowa now leading Hillary Clinton by a few points, statistically insignificant, but it's the first poll in a while that we've seen Clinton not leading in something. And Iowa being the first caucus state is going to be the most critical. If Clinton wins there, presumably she would just run away with the whole thing. If someone else wins there, the whole race really opens up. So the fact that Obama is in first is very significant politically. And on the Republican side, we're seeing Mike Huckabee now come up too and upending that race. It's now a total wild card. Who could get the Republican nomination? It could be Giuliani, could be McCain, could be Huckabee, could be Thompson, could be Romney. In watching the Democratic race in recent weeks, I've seen Democrats get very turned around on the immigration issue. And that's a little upsetting to me because I had written on LiberalOasis.com years ago, well, maybe it was last year, but it was a while back, that Democrats had to get out ahead of this, that Republicans were driving this issue, whether it was the anti-immigrant, anti-nativist, anti-multicultural wing, wanting to build borders and fences and wires and wanting to deport the whole lot, or was the corporate wing of the Republican Party just wanting cheap labor, not really caring about human rights and basic decency for human beings. And the Democrats seemed to sort of stay on the sidelines as the Republican factions hashed it out. But you can't stay on the sidelines forever. There are Democratic consultants that think you can. The New Republic had a piece last week asking various consultants what Democrats should do, and a number of them literally said, run away. Norman Adler, quote unquote, I have a 2-word piece of advice, run away from this issue. Hank Scheinkoff, the rational response here is to get away from the immigration issue, because anything that touches it on either side of the aisle can amount to no good. Well, that's great on paper, but the fact of the matter is you're going to be in a debate, you're going to be in a town hall, and people are going to bring it up. And you're going to have to deal with it. And Democrats, while realizing they can't be wholly anti-immigrant, they realize that they need to stick to their principles of human rights and diversity. They're not going totally off the deep end, in my view, but they seem very uncomfortable talking about it. And so they get turned around, and it makes them seem like they're not being leaders, that they're not being straight, they're not being firm. And that is the critical piece. If you want to win this nomination, there is now a moment here, because Obama is ahead of Hillary in one poll, people are opening their minds up again to what their choices are, but they're crying out for real leadership. And not that immigration is the only issue here where one can exude leadership, but if you did it on that issue, on a difficult issue, on an issue where people say run away from, you might not make everybody happy, but you would start building trust that you could deal with tough issues. And what irks me the most is to think that you have to be on the defense about this because somehow the majority of the country is anti-immigrant, and to think that your Republican opponent is going to be able to get you on this issue. When in fact, every possible Republican nominee is a hypocrite on immigration. And they're trying to pander to the nativist right, the nativist wing of the conservative movement in their politicking now, but in their records have pro-immigration positions. Here's a couple of examples. This is Rudy Giuliani from 1996 when he was mayor of New York.
I would do precisely what one of my predecessors did back in 1988, and that was Mayor Ed Koch. That was reissued by my immediate predecessor, Mayor Dinkins, and reissued by me. He signed an executive order called Executive Order 124. That executive order protects illegal and undocumented immigrants in several respects from being reported to the Immigration and Naturalization Service. It basically says if they seek to use city services that are critical to their health and safety and critical to the health and
that's going to get cut off a little bit at the end there, but he basically was saying that the illegal immigrants in New York City were going to have access to services that were critical to their health and safety and not be reported to the federal authorities. And that is the kind of thing that drives right-wing nativist guys crazy. And now Giuliani's on the stump saying, I'm going to end illegal immigration, when in fact he did the exact opposite as mayor. Fred Thompson. I just saw Meet the Press last week. One of the analysts there, Chuck Todd, saying this was going to be Fred Thompson's opening because the other candidates were hypocrites on it. This was Fred Thompson's issue to shine on. If you go to his webpage, you see almost no policy positions, and one of the few exceptions is illegal immigration, where he says that we can't give legal status to anyone who is currently here. This is what he said on Fox News last year.
You have to realize that you're either going to drive 12 million people underground permanently, which is not a good solution. You're going to get them all together and get them out of the country, which is not going to happen. Or you're going to have to, in some way, work out a deal where they can have some aspirations of citizenship.
You can't say on your website, don't give legal status to anybody who's currently here illegally, when you said a year ago, we have to work out a deal where they have aspirations of citizenship. You have to, if you're going to do that, you're going to give them legal status. Don't kid yourself here. So, and I could go on. Huckabee had pro-illegal immigrant policies when he was governor of Arkansas. Mitt Romney said during one of the debates in '94, I do not believe that we should deny all services to people who come here from across the border. Any Republican nominee is going to be in a bind on this issue. That is a sign of weakness for them. This is an opportunity for Democrats to not be hypocrites, to not seem like they are timid, to be able to reframe the entire issue and talk about what core Democratic principles are on the subject. That we fundamentally believe in equality and opportunity for all. All humans are created equal, no matter what country they're born in. That people crossing the border illegally committing a misdemeanor to risk death in the desert to provide for their families are no more fundamentally criminal than Americans who illegally buy affordable prescription drugs from Canada to stay alive. And since these people are not fundamentally criminal, even if they're committing a misdemeanor to come here, that they don't deserve to be subject to unfair wages, poor working conditions, lack of access to health and education, and they should be able to drive on our roads safely and not cause more accidents and drive up insurance rates. if they did that, if Democrats did that forcefully and boldly and proudly, they would make Republicans look so small and so timid. And the Democrat who did that would get the mantle of leadership that could, I think, could break the deadlock in the race.